All right. Hello, everyone. I'd like to start off by just saying thank you to Malta Enterprises, the government of Malta, who Deepak brought us here a few years ago in my previous company and introduced us to Malta Enterprises, introduced us to the government, and we ended up receiving one of the first licenses here in Malta through Deepak's efforts. And I'd also like to thank Nick and Justin and this Medcann forum because, in my opinion, in a world where we've been through hundreds of trade shows a year, this is one of the best. So I'm up here introducing my new company, which we're really proud of, and it's called Brains Bioceutical, and it has a focus on pharma, wellness, and sport. And just a little bit about myself. Deepak was very kind, mentioned the founding of one of Canada's largest LPs. We subsequently sold that, and my focus was on medicinal cannabis, pharmaceutical grade with clinical data behind it, and that's how we arrived at Brains. Brains has three distinct categories that it operates in, and I'll unbox those as we go through: pharma, wellness, and sport. The value proposition behind Brains Bioceutical is that we have an EU GMP certified production facility in Sandwich, Kent, in the UK, and we have one of the only active pharmaceutical ingredient API certified CBDs in the world. And that goes back to every presentation you've heard thus far about data and clinical trials and speaking the language of the EU pharmacopoeia and so on. So in true Canadian fashion, I'd like to say sorry right now because I'm going to make a few bold claims, and some of you may find that boastful, but the facts are there and the sources are there, so I'm very sorry. Brains Bioceutical is one of the rare few. We position ourselves at the top of the pyramid because, according to our research, there's very few companies in the world that have EU GMP certified CBD production now. So I'm not talking to you about what we're going to do in the future. There are slides that say future up top, so those are future promises. Those are things that we will deliver on. What I'm talking to you about is what we're doing right now. And right now, we feel that we're on top of the pyramid because we're one of the only business-to-business and business-to-consumer CBD APIs in the world. Here, our approach on pharma, which I'll unbox first and foremost, is that we feel we're unlocking the potential of cannabinoid medicine for the pharmaceutical industry. We have a plant-based, a phytocannabinoid, EU GMP certified API registered with the MHRA in the United Kingdom. Here's the current operation, and I'll just unbox that a little bit for you. We have one of the most experienced pharma teams in the CBD industry. Our team is comprised of people that have worked at Merck in senior management as strategists for over 28 years. We have our Chief Global Operations Officer was on the Epidiolex launch team for GW Pharma. He currently runs our facility in the UK. We have Dr. Naresh Tumati, who is world-renowned from source to shelf pharmaceutical production, and that's just to name a few. We have a specials medicine in the UK that is an MHRA-sanctioned special medicine that's available through the UK Specialist Medicine prescription formula. We have clinical trials underway, and I have slides for all of these coming up. But we have clinical trials underway. One of the trials that I'm the most proud of is a phase 3 trial in Brazil with one of the largest drug manufacturers in South America on refractory epilepsy. Currently, in Sandwich, Kent, we are producing approximately 1,000 kilograms of CBD API annually. That's the current state of affairs. That's what we're producing right now. We have GMP compliance, and that's the certificate numbers. We have an API certificate number. It's a UK registered API. We have an MHRA site license. Clinical trials, some of the academic ones, and a couple of the commercial ones, but the one that I'll bring your attention to is Prati-Donaducci, late-stage phase 3 clinical trial on refractory epilepsy. We feel very confident that we're walking in the footsteps of a giant known as GW Pharma, and we're doing it with a lot less capital in a very conservative way by being the API supplier to a large company that wants to get involved in this field. Now here's the future claim. Future operations for us are we're currently constructing a second facility in the same site. We're in Pfizer Discovery Park in Sandwich, Kent. We're constructing a facility there that'll expand from just having CBD API to an additional 4 cannabinoid APIs, and it'll bring our total production capacity to 7,000 kilograms. Why do we need 7,000 kilograms? Because if just one of the clinical trials in which we're successful, such as the one I just mentioned with Prati, their conservative estimate is somewhere between 2,000 to 4,000 kilograms just for the geofence around Brazil for refractory epilepsy. So for the pharma side of our business, we require this expansion, and we're currently expanding there. Future clinical trials. This is something that's near and dear to my heart, and we're very proud of it. We've established a partnership with the Center for Group Counseling and Trauma at the University of British Columbia. And this is a trial that we'll be initiating to try to improve the health and well-being of Canadian military personnel, veterans, and their families. So we'll be undertaking a PTSD trial, and we'll be undertaking some back pain and other pain trial initiatives through the University of British Columbia. We have an exclusive partnership with them on our CBD. Global partners, so I mentioned before Prati in Brazil. We are a business-to-business company, so Tiefenbacher is one of the largest API distributors in Germany. Tiefenbacher carries our product for distribution, and here in the UK, we have Huddersfield Pharmacy Specials that manufactures all of our specials medicines, as well as any other EU GMP manufacturing products that you need. Just like my good friend Deepak has been involved in policy and lobbying and really championing cannabis and cannabis medicine around the world for the last decade that I've known him, we've followed in his footsteps there. And we were one of the first funders for Mr. Steve Moore and the Center for Medicinal Cannabis. We're founding members of the Conservative Drug Policy Reform Group in the UK, and we're founding members of the Association for the Cannabinoid Industry. And the reason this is important is because we know that millions of people everywhere around the world use cannabis, use cannabinoids as medicine, and we all believe that they should have safer, more reasonable access to this. The problem has been trying to solve consistency problems, trying to solve efficacy problems, and I'll bridge that into the wellness portion of our company. And what we're trying to do with wellness is we're trying to solve the consistency and quality problems of the emerging CBD wellness market. So how do you take this beautiful plant, these cannabinoids that we all know anecdotally that solve problems, and how do you give the retailers, the doctors, the consumers, the assurance that the product they're consuming is ingestible, and the product they're consuming, if they put it on the shelf, will stand up to the novel foods regulations. So one of the ways we do it is by having an API, which by just natural definition of active pharmaceutical ingredient, it is ingestible to humans. So we withstand the novel foods test. The other way to do it is manufacture in an EU GMP certified facility so that there's a consistency to the product each and every time that we put something out on the shelf. So from our wellness side, we have an amazing team. Dr. Mike Bowen, he was the Royal Armed Forces, one of the chief physicians. We have EU GMP certification for human, and we have one of the only EU GMP veterinary production licenses in the world, but we won't talk about veterinary here today. We have a commercial use agreement for Brains Inside. We've acquired over 100 product formulations from the best-selling SKUs in its class, and we have retail products launching on the shelf in UK retailers in Q1 and Q2. Some of the wellness products, they're all EU GMP manufactured. We have GS1 global registration UPC codes, and our labels are FSA compliant. So again, we feel that with the suite of licenses that we have, we feel that with the production facilities that we have, that regardless of whatever regulations come down the pipeline, we'll be able to navigate that terrain if and when faced with those barriers. UK CBD market study, this is why it's important to have EU GMP. This is why it's important for us to have CBD API. It's because according to the CMC, 50% of the products that were tested and sold were less than advertised. 38% came within 10% of the advertised CBD content. 45% of them tested positive for THC, which I'll bridge into our sports segment. One tested for 0% CBD, shame on them, and one tested with 3.8% ethanol. In the UK, above 3.4%, you're considered an alcoholic beverage. So that one was interesting. Sports, working with world-class athletes to provide the cleanest THC-free products on the market. So the World Anti-Doping Agency has just delisted CBD from the banned substance list. Why is this important to Brains? Because we feel that we are one of the only companies in the world that offers Olympic athletes, Premier League athletes, NFL, NBA, NHL athletes, a product that they can use, they can digest, and they can be free of any banned substance test that comes down the pipeline. How did we do this? We brought on Dr. Jack Taunton, who is the executive director of the World Anti-Doping Agency. He was instrumental in delisting CBD. Upon his retirement, we hired him onto with our company. In addition to that, we brought on Dr. Jerry Ramajita, world-renowned director of sport and rehabilitation. Dr. Ramajita is currently the director of sport and rehabilitation for the NBA's Golden State Warriors. Prior to that, he was with, 2 more minutes, please. Prior to that, he was with the Seattle Seahawks. He's won championships in premier sports around the world. And prior to that, he was working with the London Olympic team. And Dr. Jack Taunton was the executive director of the World Anti-Doping Agency during the London Olympics and during the Vancouver Olympics. So what does this translate into? It translates into our partnership with Living Labs. Living Labs is a training facility in Scottsdale, Arizona, where players from the Premier League, where players from the NFL, NBA, NHL, and amateur athletes go to train. Whether you're Usain Bolt and you're going there to train to shave another 0.1 of a second off your sprint, or whether you're a Premier League player. There's only one of 4 or 5 facilities in the world like this, and we're proud to be partnered with one, and we have a 3-year exclusive deal with them on our CBD, and they've renamed their facility, the primary training facility, the Brains Bioceutical Living Labs, and that's through Altus. And here's some of the products that the athletes there will be using. Next Gen is our sports line. This is exclusive, and this is you'll see some brand ambassadors coming out. Again, in true Canadian fashion, we're not paying for brand ambassadorship. We're not giving stocks or shares for brand ambassadorship. What we're saying is, go to the facility, try our product. If you like it, feel free to represent our products, and then come to us and talk about a deal. But first, you have to be a user and a believer. And that's it. This is why originally I apologized and said that I'm going to make some bold claims, and the global use of our EU GMP certified CBD API was my presentation. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for your time.